Sandy or Jessica, are you going to let me know when we're ready to go live?
We're live.
We are.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have, we've got 6. Where did Councilman Di Pasquale go?
He was here.
He
He was here.
And he's not in the queue.
I
He
just
must have
went
got
calling
kicked.
him.
You're going to call him?
I just did. He didn't,
Oh.
no, he didn't answer.
Okay. Wait a moment. Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Hi.
Good evening, Carrie.
Good evening. Are there, is anybody on the line? I don't see anybody on the line for public comment. Did anything come in email?
No.
No? Okay. So after we do the pledge and agree to our first item, Kate, will you share the screen of the agenda where it's at, or the budget where it's at? Oh, we've got Joe. So,
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Joe.
I couldn't answer the phone and connect.
That's okay.
How are you?
Good.
all
That's
right,
good.
so we're all here and present.
I have to do my camera. Where's the Sisto? The Sisto better be online.
He usually isn't on, not for
Yeah,
budget.
now with budget workshops, he doesn't attend.
I wore this tie because he has ridiculed me. He accused me of wearing pajamas once. He accused me of...
Budget workshops different than council.
I thought this was a special meeting because it was budget. I don't know. Hey, Kate, did you get the text I sent you about the flood over at the dog park?
Yep, I talked to Jan and he's gonna go over there and take a look at it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I looked at it. It seems like it's just from where they're snow plowing all the crud over the years. You look tired.
Okay, we're gonna start this meeting now. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. It is, welcome everybody to the Warren Town Council special meeting. It is Monday, March 29th, 2021. It is whatever time it is. It is 6:02 p.m. If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. I think Councilman DePasquale is having some tech issues. He's just left the building again. To confirm, we do not have any public comment in the form of email or anybody on the line. So our first item on the agenda is the approval of the 2021-2022 preliminary budget. Does anybody have any questions or any additional or additions or subtractions they would like to discuss?
No, the question I have is what the JFC approved, is that what we had figured in? So we're pretty much, the numbers are pretty much the same?
So the JFC number was a little higher than what we had put in as a placeholder. So we had to make that adjustment to the attendance premiums line.
Okay,
But I worked with the finance director and we can do that. And then you'll see that the rate is increased slightly because it is a little bit higher number.
Alrighty. So with that, I believe you all received an email from Chief Souza. And he did have a request originally at our original budget workshop that was higher than the recommended request by the town manager. He has subsequently reached out and requested, as we did leave that amount as sort of on a list of priorities. And in discussion with Chief Souza and looking at his request, I think that whether we are interested in changing the amount that we approved at our last meeting, or meeting somewhere in the middle or a little bit higher than his request. He's pretty adamant and passionate about the reasoning for wanting to bring Matt Primiano, the fire prevention marshal, up to a little bit more appropriate rate. Does anybody have any opinions here? I would consider his $52,000 request an aspirational amount. I don't think that we're in a position or a place to fully grant that or bump Mr. Primiano up to that level. But I think there's a lot of reasoning in that went into Chief Souza's request as far as what the job that Mr. Primiano has been performing since that position was created a few years back. It's kind of turned into more than just the fire prevention marshal, as well, because he is not able to earn overtime hours. He basically worked probably a good estimate around 500 additional hours this past year that he was not compensated for at all because he gets cut off at a 40-hour work week. So does anybody have any suggestions about maybe an additional amount that?
Yeah, motion to increase the $52,000.
Yeah, Madam President, hold on. So we need to have some discussion about this, Joe. Not to cut you off on your,
Right, it's a motion. You can have discussion. I made a motion.
but we need to just slow down for a couple of seconds because on the email that I printed in front of me, there's a couple of things that are jumping out on me. The first thing is that going from the 45,951 to the 52,000 is a 13% increase, which is a pretty substantial and sizable amount. Now, if there was a market study to comparable jobs throughout the state, and those numbers were presented to us, and we could see that this 45,951 was way below the market, then sure, we could bring it up to where it is. The document that he sent to us in the email, it says neighboring towns, but he doesn't give us any numbers to back it up. He uses the numbers from our own town. So we shouldn't be negotiating or budgeting with our own numbers in front of us. We have to have something to compare it to. Now, I wasn't a part of any of the discussions, and if I was, then there might have been a slip at the wheel. I don't know what the job duties are, or how his salary is based on, and we really should take the name out of it. It's the fire marshal's position. Forget about who does the job. It's the fire marshal's position. So if the fire marshal's position needs to be revamped and looked at where they're eligible for overtime, if he's working 500 extra hours and his immediate supervisor's not doing anything for him, saying, take this day off, I'm not here to point the finger and say that that's bad management, but I'm going to point the finger and say that that's bad management because you can give this guy a day off. So, I mean, I'm not sure who his supervisor are, but I still think we need to do a little more homework before we just say, hey, we're going to give you a 13% increase. And then we have to deal with all our department heads, all our other unions, all our other employees that work in this town. Forget about the voters that are going to realize we gave this individual a 13% raise. So, Joe, if you want to go ahead and make your motion, go ahead, but I am not supporting a 13% increase. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. As I stated at the beginning, I think that was an aspirational request. I think it was reflective of Chief Souza's opinion of the work product produced over this past year, where there have been really sort of unusual and unpredictable circumstances. But that, and yes, in fact, that job probably over the next 6 months needs to be redefined. And so in our next budget cycle, it's either maintained as it is and an additional job created, or just further explained and enumerated the responsibilities for that position, which have definitely grown since we created it. So I'm not in favor of a 13% increase. I would like to talk about maybe a 3 or a 4% increase, which would be, I think, in step with a scaled up from where he is to get him to a better, to get that position to a better place.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but do we have to make this decision this evening? Because if they come back and say, hey, the fire marshals in Barrington, Bristol, Portsmouth, you can't really put Providence into it because the city population's 10 times ours. That salary is below them. We can be justified. But what I'm saying right now is what we have before us. How do we justify it? You know, that position may very well call for a 13% increase, but we don't have those numbers to put our fingers on. And I don't know if John can speak on what Pawtucket's position is or not.
Yeah, I pretty much, see, I'm not exactly sure all of our fire marshal's duties. I know he's got the plan reviews, he's got the sprinkler, the smoke detector inspections. But I want to see, with all this extra time, I want to see exactly what his duties are compared to, other duties too. You're right. It may well be worth the 13,000, but I want to see what we hired him to do to what he is doing now that just,
13%, yeah.
And it very well may be worth that, but without having those numbers or that exact job description, it's hard to make that call.
Is that, Kate, did you guys come up with that job description?
Yeah, so if I could, if the president doesn't mind, I'd like to just say a couple things.
Please.
I think we have two separate issues to look at. I think one of them is that there have been a lot of extra hours that were uncompensated due to COVID. So obviously over the last year, everybody's job descriptions have changed. And in particular, you know, the fire marshal has had additional COVID related duties that aren't related to plan review or kind of the.
You just froze, Kate.
Kate, you're frozen.
I don't think she can hear us if she's frozen.
I will
And
text her right now and
Yes,
let her know that she's frozen if she doesn't realize it. And I would also, you should know that Chief Souza is on the line, and if he is, if we can get him on screen and live,
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, you're
we
better.
can hear you now. Thanks.
All right, I switched networks. Okay, so if I could just finish, sorry about that, I apologize. So I think that the time that was spent on COVID related duties that was not compensable because it was done by a salaried employee, I think we have an opportunity to look at that maybe through the COVID relief dollars that were set to receive. I mean, one of the purposes for those funds is to compensate for COVID related overtime costs or premium costs. Now, we have not received any written guidance whatsoever on the use of those funds, so I certainly am not suggesting anything concrete at this time until we have those written guidelines that we can work off of. But I just want to mention that that may be an option when we're looking back at some of these COVID-related hours. On top of that, I do think that it is very appropriate to revisit the fire marshal's job description. It was developed, I developed it with the fire chief and the town council. But as time has gone on, there are additional duties that have naturally fallen into that position. And I think those do need to be incorporated into the job description, which may lead to a revisiting of the salary that's attached to that job. One of the duties that the fire marshal has been primary, and I'm sure Chief Souza could speak much better to it than I could, he's been very involved in training. So that's something that wasn't initially anticipated as part of the fire marshal duties. It's not necessarily part of the job description, but it is something that's really important and that we should formally incorporate into that job description, in my opinion. But we're not ready to do that tonight.
If I could, please just say something.
Yes.
I am, Mr. Kalenda, only looking at the position and not the person. It's the practice of mine for as long as I've tried to do this job properly. I also think that when we created the position, we didn't really have anything to start from in regards to an in-house operation we could compare it to. And when I looked at a starting point, I was hoping to start at a price point that would open a discussion focusing primarily on the hourly wage, and then open it up to the other factors that are included. So although I may have led with a motion, by no means was it meant to hamper or eliminate debate and discussion on the topic.
Yeah,
Thank you. Councilman Heckert?
thank you. I mean, yes, I think to go to the request is exorbitant at this point without the information that has been talked about. But I do think a step towards the base salaries in town would make sense, and that's maybe the 3 or 4% idea that Council President Cronin had. Maybe not going to 48, but maybe going somewhere in that range, and that would be a step. It would be an acknowledgement of the work that he's put in. And I just think it makes sense at this point.
So again, Madam President, if I may,
You may.
I hear you guys loud and clear, and, you know, coming from the public safety side for 22 years, it has nothing to do with doing a great job or not doing a great job, because if you're going to increase somebody's salary that because they did a great job, does that mean we're going to decrease it when they do a bad job? My point is, if the position is low compared to the other positions in the state of the same job, then we raise it. And we may have to raise it substantially to the point where maybe we can't do 13% this year, but maybe we can do 6 or 6.5 and 6.5 next year. That brings it up to where it needs to be. But it's really irrelevant on whether or not the person did the great job or didn't do a great job. It's, does the salary compare to the other salaries that it's identical to? And with the manager saying the duties have changed, then maybe we need to look at the duties. But it really is irrelevant on whether or not the person did a great job or not. It's whether or not the position is compensated equally to the other positions. And my recommendation is probably, unless we get some other solid numbers in front of us, splitting it in half if we need to elevate it to where it's more comparable to the other fire marshals in the state.
Thank you. Chief Souza, I think you'd probably,
Yes.
if you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have my video isn't cooperating, but so to answer Councilman Calenda's point, it was very difficult to do it to comparables to other towns. You know, some are paid departments, they move up through the ranks and obviously make a lot more money, eventually becoming fire marshal. And to the other neighboring towns, Massachusetts is always on a different rate level than Rhode Island. So we have Bristol really all to work with. So that base of 52 that was requested was just an average, taking that into consideration from the different pay scales in the area. That's why in the email, I kind of just reverted back to doing a comparable to base salaries already in place in Warren. And just getting to that base salary would be a good start. And as Manager Misha was stating, we can look at it in the future because of the other tasks that he takes on day in and day out. And as Councilman DePasquale said, it did grow from the position originally applied for a few years ago, as we expected. You know, it was a starting point. We needed a number to get the position to get started, and this is where we are today. So that was the request. The reason for the request, yes, the job has taken on so much more, but more so just get up to a fair level, comparable to just in town to start. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. So a 6% increase would bring that salary up to 48,708, which is a 2757 increase if we were to go that direction. Or I think that's the right direction to be going in, up. And then the full review of the positions or the job description, and having that as the ultimate factor in the next budget cycle. I think doing something like in the 4 to 6% range this year would be moving in the right direction.
But wouldn't you be looking at a $60 a week increase as something once the pay is substantiated? If the position is underfunded, what is $60 a week? That to me is I don't know, this.
Joe, it's a great point. He does bring up a great point. It's really an insignificant amount. It's just, it's not unreasonable or inappropriate to ask for something a little bit more to hang our hats on. And, you know, I appreciate the chiefs, but I'm reading, and I'm going to read verbatim. My request of 52,000 in this year's budget is an average based off marshal salaries in neighboring towns. So I'm going by what the chief presented to us. If he's basing the 52,000 on marshal salaries in neighboring towns, then it would be nice to know what those marshal salaries in the neighboring towns are. Now he just said that there's not a lot of marshals that do what we do because they go up the ranks through in the fire service because they're paid. Okay, fine. What is the marshal salary in Bristol, Chief Souza, if you happen to know?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I believe it's around 50,000.
Around 50,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Can
So-
I ask if, is this position compensated for rescue runs?
Any rescue runs he does off hours, he gets compensated separately.
Off
Not
hours?
just Off hours, correct.
All right, so when he's on the clock, what are the I always looked at when we created this position as not necessarily a assistant chief, but absolutely a person who'd be working administratively in the field as well as on call with all of the qualifications that we have for our rescue, fire, all of that. So
Right.
to me, having a professional in that professional position, ready to go during pay hours, without overtime, without all of those factors that we mentioned in the beginning when we started the discussion, I think that, the salary has to come up, then we can rework it and figure out how you want to, give them a raise every year, give that person a raise every year. But I clearly can see that we created something that we had no comparison to in the past. And when we created it, we were trying to make sure we created something that would be a position that would show the value, and it has. And I think we've not properly supported it. Remunerate, we haven't put the money where it should go now. I can see that over what we've done. So when you look at it for comparisons, we went from nothing. We went from a fire chief of 6 years ago who would kill himself doing the work of 10 people. So that's where I come from. I have no problem revisiting this. I have no problem reworking whatever you want to do. I see many times we've made very large percentage jumps to bring positions up to where they need to be. And then over the years, they grow and you give them your 1%, 2% raise. So that's where I'm from. And I don't think that I'm shooting from the hip. I do believe that I have a good handle on this position and what this how lucky we are with the volunteers and the professionals we have in this town.
I agree with most of that, Joe. It's just, I would want some more information to base my numbers on. I don't want to just shoot in the dark. I know what the original job description was. I want to see what else is performed. Maybe actually even an hour comparison. I'm more open to the 13%, but I need to see something to justify it to myself and to the taxpayers.
And John, that's good. I'm not here trying to push a position forward that's not reasonable. The reason I came out the way I did is because I just really feel that I think we're lucky. I do. So I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody's input, and I'm part of the team here.
How long has the position been in place?
I think 3 years.
Yeah, this is the third year.
Yeah,
And if I can, I just looked up the salary for Bristol. For the upcoming fiscal year, the fire marshal salary is $51,962.
Okay. So, and it's a community almost twice our size. So I think landing somewhere between the 48 and the 51 is probably right on point.
Right, but I don't know if the Bristol's fire marshal does rescue runs. I don't know if he's got the duties may be totally different.
Well, what it sounds like to me is that our fire marshal, when he's working his 8 to 4 gig and there's a rescue call, he probably responds because he's on duty. He's a fire personnel, he can respond.
Okay.
I don't know if he's going to, if he's in the middle of an inspection or something, to drop everything unless it's a, I don't know. I mean, that's a Chief Souza question.
Councilman Heckert?
I'm making a motion that we increase the fire marshal's salary to $48,000.
What's that percentage come out to?
It's about
It
six.
does not exactly, it's a 6% is 48,708.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a little under 6%. It's
Little under
5 and change.
At 48,000, it would be 4.46%.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we very well may have to have brought this up even more now that we know what Bristol has, I think it's a fair comparison to compare what Bristol has to what we have. And you said 51.9, Kate, is that what you said?
That's what
Yes.
Bristol.
Yes.
51.9?
They also have some additional personnel, so I'd have to, I don't know their system as well. They have a chief, a battalion chief, a fire marshal, and then another paid fire position.
And do they get bennies? Do they get overtime? Do they get what we don't have?
Yeah, I don't know if those guys they're not union. They're
I
just
don't
house
think-
employees. Yeah.
But they may have a package that would allow them overtime. And,
Correct.
you know,
And truth be told, I was very interested in seeing what the package that is attached to this position. For anything else, anybody that's working that much above and beyond their regular 40 hours, if for nothing else, should be given at least compensatory something. It's almost like you're having them work and not compensating them. It's kind of a little.
He does get comp time. I'm sorry, yeah, he does get comp time for hours that he works as fire marshal outside of his normal duties.
Okay, so,
It's when he does, what fire department functions, as all the volunteers do, that's where the extra hours come in as well.
Okay.
He's
All right,
doing his
so
fire marshal job.
we're peeling back the onion a little bit better. That's fine. And are you following the federal standard on comp time accumulating up to 480?
We keep track of all his hours, yes.
Yeah, so, okay, all right, so, all right. I think 6.5% or 6%, and then we could revisit this to get it to back to 13. Not a bad idea, but I don't want to take away from Councilman Heckard's motion.
So we have a motion on the floor for a 4.4% increase, which would be 48,000. And Councilman Kalenda just mentioned a 6% increase, which would be an additional $708. Councilman Heckard, do you want to amend your
I
motion?
will amend my motion. to that
wait a
figure.
minute, somebody seconded that motion?
No, there was no
No.
second.
Right, so there's no motion on the floor.
Yeah, so Councilman De Pasquale's motion, original motion still stands.
Well, that
Okay.
wasn't seconded either.
I didn't get, yeah.
No, it didn't get seconded, but yeah, just so we kind of got to go back to Joe's original motion first.
All right,
No,
so
if it does, if we don't second it, it just dies.
It wasn't
Correct.
seconded.
Right, there's no, it's,
But
Just
the
like
Council President she didn't ask for a second, not to,
Right, so it basically, it's the same thing that Brant just did.
correct.
Brant, what is your motion?
so my motion, my motion would be to raise the fire marshal's salary to that figure that Steve.
The 6% increase,
6% increase, which figure? I'm sorry.
$48,708.
$48,708. There we are. 6% increase. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor, or we can have a roll.
Discussion?
Would you like further discussion?
Yes,
Okay,
because I think once again, we started off, everybody feeling that at 52,000, that was too dramatic of an increase. We were looking for more information. We were looking for duties. We were looking for hours. We're looking for all this information. All of a sudden, we're going to go to 6% as a motion and $60 a week. I mean, this is ridiculous. If we value the employee for the amount of work he's putting in, and we don't have enough information tonight, although I have enough information, all of a sudden we have enough information to give him $60 a week more. I mean, if we're going to use facts, why don't we start using them? This doesn't make sense to me.
Joe, that was my intention all coming into this, that I thought the original request from Chief Souza was a bit high, and I thought somewhere in between, because he made a valid point about being in relation to other workers in town. So my original intent was to go somewhere in between there, and that's why I made the motion. So,
But why are we going in between?
because I think that the high number is too high, and I think that the in between number is more in keeping with other town salaries and wages. So That just
Well,
makes
Joe,
sense.
the 48,000 that we landed at, the 48.7 is right at what a town employee makes. The
Right.
town employee makes 48.7. And where I came up with the 48 is if Bristol's at 51.9, I mean, they're a bigger community. He's got more responsibilities. I understand the package could be completely different and there could be a better benefit package or it could be a worse. But if you're just gonna compare the salary to salary, you land at around the 48 to 49 grand.
Well, I guess where all of you have actually brought me into your fold in regards to the information. All of a sudden, it seems like we're going to make a decision based on a percentage without knowing really what his caseload is, really what the comparisons are. If we're going to look at additional information to make our decision, we should have it. We shouldn't just say, well, you know what? All of those points Steve made, well, let's go with 6%. The points Joe made, let's go with 6%. Why? Because it's a number that's half. I don't know. I really value this position, and I would hate to see this person take a position filled by somebody not as qualified, because now I am going to talk about the actual employee for a brief moment, because I'm really happy with that employee. And Steve, I do think that the quality of work does matter. Because if we had somebody who was doing the bare minimum and just barely getting by, yeah, all right, give them a 2% raise. But if we have somebody who we want to keep and we value, and we look at somebody standing side to side with the chief administrative duties, this is a position that relieves the chief of what almost killed our previous chief, who was in 10 places at once.
I don't think anybody's here to debate whether or not the individual is doing a great job. Yes, they're doing fabulous work, above and beyond. Absolutely. But if we're gonna make the comparison on salary to salary, then the math doesn't lie. The math does not, the math is simple. If we're gonna take the salary from the fire marshal position in our neighboring community and compare it to us, the number that we're landing on is where that position leads. Now, every other benefit to it, that's a separate issue. Right now, we're just talking about the salary. And Joe, you're 100% right. You're absolutely right on point. You want to reward, good work, agree, 100%. But what we're talking about is the salary.
I also think we can we can revisit this going down the road. And right now, we're looking at, some severe budget cuts. And so we have to take all this into consideration.
Yeah. The only other question I had is, do we have to settle on this evening, or we do? So the council president is shaking her head. Okay.
We have one more pass. This is the preliminary approval or the approval of the preliminary budget. There's still one more final pass that we get at this, is there not?
I mean, is it, I don't mean to kick the can down the road, but I mean, would it be worth tabling it until our next budget meeting, or?
My stand on it is I know the original salary was too low by what I know of the position. But I didn't know if the changes justified the big step. I know for sure it justifies at least a half a step based on just what I know what a fire marshal does. But I didn't have enough information to make the big jump like you did, Joe. So I'm comfortable with the 6%. And geez, we can put this on next month's agenda if we can get the paperwork and we can look at it again, or we can do it the next budget cycle.
Well, let me stress that I am by no means going to vote against the 6%. This is not it's the 52 or nothing. All I'm trying to say is I appreciate your interest in additional information. I would hate to see us make a decision on a number without having that information. So if we can keep this alive and get to a point that is based on the science and the questions you guys are asking, I think that would be great. Because I think if we can bring this to where it needs to be, and then in the future, you get that 2% or that 3% where it should be, yeah, I think that's great. Believe me, I am not looking at this as a fight.
Okay, let's wrap this up with some final comments. We have a comment in the chat room that says a fire marshal should be making more than a town employee. We have cops in town who make $100,000 a year. So there could be comments coming from all places. I think the 6% increase as we have it right now is a really meaningful step towards getting to that appropriate and reflective salary number that this position requires and warrants. I think that if we go to the 6% right now, I think that it makes a strong statement. We can take some time over the next few months for the manager and the fire chief to maybe recreate or re-identify the job description. And then hopefully once we get the recommendations on how to use the stimulus money, we can maybe backfill a bit to compensate for those hours that were unexpected and unpredictable. And yeah, so we have a motion and a second for the 6% increase. And as with all of things, the discussion can be revisited down the road. So I don't think this needs to feel like a hard end. So can we have a vote? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. So next, with that change to that one line, we have some adjusted numbers to approve at the end. Are those filled in and available for us now, Manager Michaud?
Yes, if you want me to share my screen, would you?
Yes, please.
Can I ask one question before we move on to another topic?
You may.
Staying with this position. So we're going to get additional information by the next budget meeting to look at this, because you said a few months and then you were talking about stimulus money. I do feel that all of the information that that others were asking for should be looked at. And I would be in favor of not buying a $35,000 pirate ship and funding this position for at least 5 years. I really think that if we're going to look, this is a fire marshal. This is somebody's going to come to your house if need be and save your life. Yes to what you're asking and saying. I believe that there will be more information coming our way. I believe we do have another opportunity before final approval to possibly enrich this salary even to a greater level. We will also be revisiting the description of that job. The stimulus money is just a way to potentially compensate for hours worked that were unpredictable. That has nothing to do ultimately with the salary that we approve tonight and possibly to a greater extent at the end. Good, because when we discuss paid positions in rescue and fire personnel, the one neighbor we need to look at is Barrington, because the 12 people they have is $2 million a year. So whenever and I may be wrong, that was just something that I think was based on some numbers I used to know, may not be factual, but for discussion, it's more than $50,000. So anytime we ever are discussing these issues, let's just think about how the next council will deal with a paid fire department of 12 people at $2 million. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're about to get the screen shared, so we get our numbers.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is your column. Column AY is the town council's numbers. The change that you made does not have a material impact because it doesn't change the proposed rate. It has a very slight impact on the tax cap. It went, I think, from 3.88 to 3.89. So I believe what you typically do for a preliminary budget is that you take a vote on the total town expenditures, the capital budget, the non-tax revenue, I don't know, I don't believe you have to vote on the, maybe you do for the Bristol Warren Regional School District, because you already, you don't have a choice in that one. And then the total tax levy and the rate. So if you'd like to, typically what you would start with is the total town expenditures, this line, row 19. Column AY, row 19.
I'll make a motion. We approve the total town expenditures in the amount of $17,685,872.
Second,
We have a motion by VP Hanley, a second by Councilman Kalenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next motion.
I will make a motion. We approve the net cost of town government in the amount of $12,357,455.
second,
So we have a motion from VP Hanley, a second from Councilman Calendra to approve the net cost of town government. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
I would like to
Opposed?
make a motion. We approve the net cost of education at $13,063,484.
second,
We have a motion from VP Hanley, a second from Councilman Kalenda to approve the net cost of education. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Okay, I would like to make a motion to impose the total tax levy in the amount of $25,480,939 at a, I don't need to do the rate on that one. It's the last one I gotta do. Okay, yeah.
second,
We have a motion from VP Hanley, a second from Councilman Kalenda to approve the total tax levy. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we approve the tax rate change of 2.09% for the tangibles and 3.89% for the, I'm reading this wrong here.
No, actually, it's the orange box, so it's just a single rate, $17.72, which is an
Okay.
exchange of 2.
All right, $17.72, tax rate at a 2.09% increase.
The
Right.
total tax levy, isn't it? We have to approve as well, the 24
Right.
million.
Yep. So now I gotta do the 24 million?
No, actually, you already approved that as part of the full tax levy. The total tax levy includes motor vehicle.
Okay,
This
good.
calculation is just what this, with the motor vehicle pulled out, that's what the state looks at, but you don't
Okay.
need to take a separate vote on that because it's already incorporated in your previous vote. So
All
just
right.
the rate.
So that should do it, right?
To a point of clarity, we're going from 1736 to 1772, correct?
Correct.
Did we vote?
Do we have a second on that?
second, yeah,
All righty, so we have a motion by VP Hanley, a second by Councilman Di Pasquale, all to approve the tax rate and the tax levy. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Okay, we have approved the preliminary budget. Next, we have the recreation director. Is the recreation director with us?
He is not.
Yeah, I had told her that I would handle this item. So
Okay.
It's very straightforward. It's just a request to purchase mulch for the different playgrounds. It's something that we do on an annual basis, but due to the cost, it's all budgeted. We have money, but due to the overall cost, it requires town council approval.
I'll make a motion. We approve the expenditure for the mulch at the town parks in the amount requested by the recreation director.
Second.
So we have a motion by VP Hanley, a second by Councilman Di Pasquale to approve $17,720. This is a master price agreement price to purchase mulch for a variety of town facilities. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All righty. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm not making it. I want to stay here.
So moved.
Okay, me too. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. See ya
Bye.
next
See you
time.
later.
Yeah, when,
November 1st.
2 days.